was getting dressed this morning and thinking, how many necklaces does it take to defrump an outfit? Apparently 3 is not enough. Hi, I'm Myrna. Thanks for joining me in my studio. I will show you what I'm wearing. It feels quite frumpy, and that will be a topic for another video. This one is about t-shirts and about the techniques that I use to stabilize the neck, stabilize the shoulders, and create a lovely hem. Those are the areas where I think a t-shirt can look, I'm not going to say professional because I'm not a professional, and I'm not going to say the quality of ready-to-wear because mine is way better. I think these are the techniques that will allow you to create a garment that looks good, feels good, that will have longevity, and that you'll be proud of. In this video, we'll talk about what I'm wearing, and then I will show you the techniques that I use. I'll reflect at the end about the results of the t-shirt that did not go at all in the direction that I wanted, but still, I learned something. It wasn't the techniques, it was the fabric. I'll tell you about the outfit. The video is about the t-shirt, as I said. There'll be more details about that at the end. I'm totally thrilled that you're here, and like last week, I will ask you to please watch the entire video. I'm wanting to build up my watch hours, but if you're not able to, there are timestamps in the description, and thanks for being here. The sweater is ancient. I don't know even what yarn I used to knit it. It was so long ago. The stitch is called a flex stitch. I have a couple books where they're just stittionaries. And what I will do, as I did with this one, is I knit that stitch in the yarn until I get the hand of the fabric I want. And then I will figure out how to adapt it. This is my basic sweater pattern. Based on those numbers, I chose the size and length and all of that. The t-shirt, we'll talk about it more. The pants, I didn't sew them. They are the kite pants from Matchy Matchy. My friend Mary sewed them for herself, and then she didn't like them on her. I asked her to send them to me so I could try them on and see what I think. I really like this detail here. I love the way the pocket fits into the side seam like that, but it's not all the way over to here, so it's a lot less bulk. As is always true, I have a ton of fabric right here because once I've walked around in a pair of pants, the waistband settles so that the top is at my waist, and my waist is a string. So if I pull these up, like you might think you're going to wear your pants, it's not so bad. But as I walk through the day and do the moving stuff, this will all settle right down like that, and I have to figure out. I am going to resew these, and we will talk about that then. Onto the t-shirt. I made 2. I was testing different things. That's the part that didn't go well. And let's look at the video, the techniques that I use for the quality I want, and I'll tell you my reflections at the end. I know a lot of other sewists would consider this quite old-fashioned, but I actually prefer to pin my patterns and then cut them out with scissors. I find it's slow and meditative, and I don't want to be in a rush. Sewing is something I do because I really enjoy it. So I cut it out, and then this is fusible interfacing. It is stretchy in one direction and stable in the other. My favorite brand is Pellon FusiNet. I have 2 jars. This one is 3/8 inch strips that I cut with a rotary cutter, and they are cut in the stable direction so they do not stretch, and I mark it straight. These are 1/2 inch strips that are cut with the stretch going around. I use them in different parts of the t-shirt where that's exactly what you want, to stabilize or to give a crisp edge but still have a little bit of stretch. Let me show you how I do that. This is the back. The first thing I do before I take the pins out is clip where center back is, and you would mark any of the notches and any other markings that are on your piece. Then I take the pins out, Check to make sure that you are putting the fusible on the correct side, as in the wrong side of whatever it is you're making. This has a brushed back, which is really lovely. Lay your piece out on a nice flat surface. That can be your ironing board. And there is my notch. I take the pattern piece and align it to the notch and make sure that all of the outside edges are following. Typically one side will be quite good and the other will need adjusting. Now I'm taking the 3/8 inch strips. I was just warming up the iron there. Make sure that you're putting the glue part down, and I go all the way around, aligning the edge of the strip with the edge of the collar. I do not have a seam allowance on this. I am going to bind this exact edge. If you have a seam allowance, you want to make sure this covers the seam line and that you will be stitching through it. Fuse that down, but don't move anything. Just go in there and lightly tap the edge. This is a silk chiffon pressing cloth. I go in with the tip of the iron and just touch it to make sure that it's sticking. Then take the pins out and give it another press for a length of time that will make it really stick. Whatever it says on your instructions. This is your back shoulder seam, and you do not want that to be stretched or shrunk. I use the pattern piece to make sure that it is the correct length on both sides. And again, one may be right on and the other might not. I only do this on the back. Here I do have a seam allowance. So I am putting the 3/8 inch line on my ruler, even with the raw edge of the fabric, and then taking a strip, glue side down, and laying it across there. That means that this 3/8 strip is now straddling the sewing line. When I sew the t-shirt together, I will have the back on top where I can see this, and I will have the front on the bottom just in case it's slightly longer and needs to be eased in with the help of the feed dogs. The hem is meant to have a bit of drape and stretch. I'm careful to get it laying flat. You just kind of baby your fabric. Don't pull it. Just let it fall where it wants to fall. Make sure that you close the straight one and open the stretchy one, because now you want stretch. If this is a big curve, you may have to pin the strips. If it's a gentle curve like this one, you don't have to. And again, with the pressing cloth. That's it for this step. I do all the pieces at once, and then I move on to the next stage, and I'll show you that in just 2 seconds. One thing I should have mentioned in the last segment was that I use the sleeve pattern to make sure it is the width it needs to be and hasn't stretched out in any way. After that, I serge finish all the shoulder, side seam, and hems. I do not finish anything that has to do with the neckline or the armhole. I don't sew my seams on the serger. I know a lot of people do. I don't like that look. I mostly use a serger for seam finishing. So if you don't have one, it's not a problem. Just skip that step. From there, I pin and press up the hems. And I literally use a ruler and make sure that it is accurate. When you do your very best job at every stage of construction, then you have created your very best product. What might take a lot of time at first will become smoother and easier the more often you practice it. So if you think, oh, that's too fiddly, I don't have time for that. Well, if you're willing to invest the time to develop the skill, it will get easier and easier as you go along. When I stitch this seam with the stabilized strip on top, I didn't need to adjust my stitch in any way for this because this is a stable seam. It is not going to stretch. That's why it's important to make sure that you have actually stitched right through the strip. To finish the neckline, I've left one of the shoulders open, and I place a strip with the most stretch going around, right sides together, even with the edge of the neckline. I stretch it just. You don't need to overstretch it because you've already stabilized this edge. You just want that to be smooth. I pin the first 2 or 3, and then I serge that whole distance of the neckline. If you do not have a serger, you want to stitch equidistance from the edge. The bulk of this seam is what you're going to turn the binding over. Once the neckband is serged in place, lay it wrong side down again on a flat surface. I should have said a heat-resistant surface at the beginning because that's also important since you're going to press it. Pull the band nicely away without overstretching. Take your pressing cloth and press that in place. Then turn it over, right side down. And this is why you need that nice firm edge. Roll it over the edge. Depending on the fabric, I don't always use a pressing cloth here because I want to see clearly. Press the whole thing and then turn it to the right side. Make sure that as you go along, this is turned over nicely. Pin the entire length, ready to stitch the binding in place. I usually pin in the groove where the seam is, especially with this fabric. It's slightly thicker and it's very easy to clearly see the edge. That edge is important for the next step. I'm very awkwardly sewing with a tripod in my lap. The stitching, the needle is going right into the ditch, the part where the stitching happened and the fabric is folded back. The only thread I had that was not glaringly off was black, and so I am being very careful to get that stitch exactly in the ditch. There's 2 ways you can do this. Well, there's 3. You could use a double needle and have the left hand needle be in the groove and the right hand needle be on the edge of the banding. Or you can sew 1 row in the ditch and have nothing on the banding. Or you can sew 1 row in the ditch and 1 on the banding. The t-shirt is right sides down with the body towards me, the neckband forward. You'll find that this banding will roll towards the right side, so it rolls away from you. One of the reasons it was important to have that stabilizing underneath was so that when you stitch in the ditch, you are stitching through that stabilizer and you don't have any puckering. Then I take my scissors, and I tried this once already and my hands kept blurring the picture. I put it in the fold and I'm cutting. Now, when I'm not filming, I actually hold it like this. The other thing you can do is cut from this side. You're cutting about 1/8 of an inch away from the stitching. The techniques that I use are a combination of 3 women that I spent quite a bit of time with in terms of knits. One was Marcy Tilton, one was Patty Palmer, and the other was Sandra Bezzina. I was lucky to take 1 or more classes with each of them. I tend to do a really deep dive whenever I'm interested in a subject. These are the techniques that work for me over and over. This is the neckband with the double stitching, and this is the one with the single stitching. I hope you'll try those techniques. I found them so incredibly helpful to getting the quality of look that I want. Let me apologize first for the reflection in my glasses. I cannot figure that out, and I will eventually. The t-shirt. What I wanted to test was the position of the underarm. And to do that, I wanted to sew the exact same t-shirt in the exact same fabric, so that the only thing I was actually testing was that position. The problem is I chose the wrong fabric. This fabric has too much stretch. The only seam I serge on a t-shirt is the armhole. Everything else is stitched with a regular stitch, but this is a serger. And what happened is this armhole is just getting bigger and bigger. And so I have made a lovely night shirt, but I haven't at all tested the thing that I wanted to. I need to remember when I'm fabric shopping not to get caught up in shiny objects and to keep my objective in mind. It's funny how we have to keep relearning these things. I have been sewing my t-shirts for a good 15, 16 years now. In January 2010, I had my last solo exhibit of textile art, and then I just have been working in different things along the way, jewelry, mixed media, trying this, trying that. In between, I have continued to sew infrequently. So my return to fashion sewing is a return to sewing frequently, like daily or weekly. But all along, I've been wearing my own t-shirts because they fit so much better. But one thing I had discovered early on is I don't like fabrics with a lot of stretch. But why is it that when I'm in the store and I see a gorgeous fabric, soft and warm and cozy, in a charcoal color that I'm trying to wear more than black, that I bring it home? And it isn't until I'm actually sewing it that I remember, oh right, you don't like working with this. It's a good thing, since I have lots of sewing ahead of me and lots of sewing behind me, that we get to revisit these things. I wouldn't want to be perfect all the time. I remember going bowling once, years and years ago, but the gentleman in the lane next to us, for the 3 hours that us couples were there bowling, he never got anything other than a strike. 3 hours of back-to-back strike. Maybe he was going for a record, I don't know, but my thinking was find a new topic to explore, find something that you are not good at and get better at it, which is kind of why I'm always going into these deep dive questions of what would happen. I don't know. We'll have to answer that question on another day, but for today, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week. Take care.